I'm Roger Bennick with Roger Outdoors. Today I'd like to introduce you to a new topic, one that I really enjoyed over a period of years, uh, and it's tracking wild animals. Uh, I Some time ago I picked up a book uh, written by John Brown called Tracking, and he was a Native American, and he talked about in the book. He talked about his experiences of growing up and really getting his mind into tracking to the point that he would go out at some of the experiences. He would go out in the wilderness, and sometimes he'd get chased up trees by packs of wild dogs. He'd go out and lay in a field and have deer walking all around him, almost stepping on him. And then in the morning he would wait. He'd go out there again and say, "Okay, I visualize what they were doing. I want to now look at their tracks and see what it looked like, if they're just feeding or if they were mating or whatever they're doing, and see if I could kind of see what the tracks were different in the different activities that they're involved in." And he'd look at animal tracks and be able to say, "Okay, this animal's been injured by, just the length of, the way that it was walking, without seeing any blood or anything, just the cadence of the thing." And so he did this for a number of years, and some of his experiences were just fascinating. I recommend the book, actually. I was spellbound reading it. But ultimately, he became a professional tracker. That if people that got lost and in the wilderness, and search and rescue wanted, they'd send out dogs normally and see if they could, find them from the scent. If they couldn't do it that way, and that the dogs would lose the scent, they would call John Brown, and he would come along, and he had a good enough. He didn't find everybody alive that he went out after, but his success rate was high enough that they said, "Hey, this is worthwhile. I mean, somebody, we're liable to save a life here if we call him out and put him on the trail." And John was so experienced at it, he would look at the track and he would say, "This person, the way he's wandering around, he's just, he's just panicked, or he's injured, or he'd be able to look at just kind of draw a mental picture of what this person was like, based on the way that he's walking through that period that he could see what the tracks look like." And he would follow the tracks for a little while, and but usually by the time they called him, the person was maybe 2 days ahead of him. And so just kind of following the track, if the person kept walking, it was going to be pretty hard for him to catch up to him. So he would kind of look at the way that, study how okay, this is a panicked person that's walking in this direction, and look at the contour of the land, and you say, "Well, he's probably going to go this direction." And so he'd take a shortcut, and he would try to pick up the tracks again, where he anticipated the person running into, some, obstacle along the way, and, etc. And he would, again, cut off enough time that he was able eventually to catch up with some people, and, call in the search and rescue people and say, "Hey, I found him," and so that inspired me. And so I was into snowshoeing at the time, and I loved snowshoeing because it was, that's the easiest time to really see tracks, rather than trying to look in the grass and the leaves. And, earlier in the year, it's pretty hard to spot the tracks. So, but when snow's on the ground, the first thing that I found is, during the summer or the fall, seeing an animal was a reasonably rare occurrence. I mean, you wouldn't, you'd have to be really quiet and walk up on them, etc. And so you got the impression there weren't that many animals around. But when you walk out there and you see how many tracks there are, how many variety of animals. I mean, just everything from elk and deer and bear, and that bear don't hibernate all winter long. They get up from time to time. We'd see bear prints, and we'd see cougars that would come down to feed on the elk herd, and and we, it became kind of a passion of me to read the stories in the snow. You can kind of say, okay, here's a fresh track. You can kind of see just the way that it's, the fresher the track, the snow crystals will look a little different. The imprint is a little sharper, and you can tell that hey, this probably was in the last couple hours that this animal came through here. And you see stories. You can see, oh, okay, here's where a cougar was chasing a squirrel around a tree, and aha, here's a little bit of squirrel fur. That squirrel wasn't very lucky. Or another time I was following a grouse through this willow patch, and I see all of a sudden some coyote tracks coming kind of parallel to the way that we were walking, and I kept watching the steady pace of the grouse, and all of a sudden the steps started getting longer and longer, and it was starting to run. And I looked over at the coyote tracks, and I could see that he was starting to take longer and longer bounds through the snow. And then pretty soon I can see where there were wing prints in the snow where the bird had taken off, and I could see look over to the side and see where the coyote had leaped in the air to try to catch the bird. And I didn't see any feathers, so that bird was a lucky one. He made it away. So, but I had a story to tell. I mean, just I could almost see the whole sequence happening. And so a lot of times when I would be following maybe some elk tracks or cougar tracks, well, one day I was feeling out by the Teanaway River north of Cle Elum, and I'm following this set of cougar tracks, and as it kind of was following some deer, this elk herd. And so I follow it for a while, and it kind of made a circle, and I come around and I see my own snowshoe tracks in the, on the ground, and I look behind him, and I can see where here comes the cougar. The cougar is now tracking me. I decided, well, okay, I think it's time to go back to the car and call this today's experience. But tracking itself was really just a fun experience. I ultimately I got to volunteer with a group that when they were widening Interstate 90 across Snoqualmie Pass, they had wilderness survival group involved in tracking different animal types, the larger animals, the deer and the elk and cougars and that type of thing, and trying to see where they might cross the freeway, and to avoid getting hit by cars. The Department of Transportation wanted people to go out there and map we would use GPS and our snowshoes, and we would walk different areas all the way from Easton all the way up to the top of the pass, and we'd spot a set of tracks, and we'd say, okay, thus and such coordinates, and this is the kind of cover that they had, whether it was a meadow or heavily treed, and I'm looking at an otter track or whatever you're seeing. We had to learn all what the different animal tracks look like, and actually we were able to we were responsible for where they ultimately located the overpass and an underpass to let the animals cross the freeway without so many of them being killed by the car. So it's a valuable experience to have, just to to learn, look at the ground and say, oh, that's a raccoon, that's a coyote, that's a whatever it is, and just kind of say to yourself, okay, hey, there's wildlife around here, and without knowing your tracks, you're able to identify the animal and get a little bit more enthusiasm for your outdoor adventure by saying, well, today I saw, pine marten, and, just whatever was out there that day that you're tracking along. So, take it up. I mean, it's really. I mean, I've used it in out hunting pheasants and through the sagebrush to tracking them. Just all kinds of applications to it. You can really enjoy it, and you get a lot of satisfaction out of tracking an animal and saying, okay, it's feeding now. It's blending in with a group of other pheasants, starting to run, and it's heading for this thicket over here. I bet you that's where he is because the tracks don't come out the other side. Just really cool stories that you have from just kind of following the track. So give it a try.